What are the most common methods for transferring property in California? And how do you help clients decide which is best?
Right, right. Well, a lot has to do with when they purchase the property, right? What are their goals? Do they will a child actually live in the property, or are they just going to sell it, right? Are they going to receive the asset? They want to sell it. So I'm a big proponent of putting your assets in a revocable trust, right? So, and making sure that the families will receive that double step up in basis. So we always like to have the asset become community property and then it goes into the trust. Then the question is, okay, now your home, which is a large asset, is in a revocable trust. So since it's in a revocable trust, then you will avoid probate, right? Which is fantastic. Then the next question is that needs to be discussed. Will one of your children actually want to live in the house? And we have to put in sort of secret sauce, if you will, to make sure that you can have the parent-child exemption, so it doesn't get reassessed from a property tax, standpoint. So there's a lot of more discussions, and you have to get a little more intimate when you're talking about estate planning, right? I always tell clients, if whatever you share with me, that's how much I can help you. So the more you share what your goals are, what your family dynamics are, then we can put a plan together. But it's super important to understand the family dynamics as well.
Okay.
So it's joint tenancy. We're not a big fan of joint tenancy.
Hmm.
Community property with right of survivorship, okay, but you're not avoiding probate on the second death. You may get the double step up in basis. Then the best would be obviously putting it in a revocable trust. If you have other property besides your primary residence, then you really want to look into setting up LLCs and protecting those rental properties with other entities that you can do here. And it doesn't get reassessed if your husband and wife own it, they're going to put it into an LLC. It's not going to get reassessed. So there's just, again, trying to understand what does your estate look like and what are your goals? And is this, long term or short term? Are you going to give it outright or are you going to give it in trust to the kids as well? So those are some of the different ways that you can take, title to real property.
What are some of the biggest risks or mistakes you see families make when they're transferring property themselves without legal guidance?
Well, and I know I mentioned it, right, just a few minutes ago when many times people will come in and whether it's for refinancing, whether it's for security, I don't know, and they add their child to the deed. And they don't realize that when they add their child to the deed, they're exposing their primary asset, right? Their home to that child's liability. But then also they just gifted it. And remember I mentioned, the basis. If you gift it, then if that mom or dad bought that property for $500,000 and it's worth $2 million, when that son or daughter gets put on title, their basis is that $500,000. So when mom or dad passes, they're going to have a huge capital gain when they go to sell that property. So, and I see that all the time. And then they'll come in and say, "Oh, I put my son or daughter on this property 5 years ago, and I understand it's a bad thing," right? And you're like, "Oh, great. So it got reassessed 5 years ago. So we're going to take you off of title. It's going to get reassessed again." And so then they're just in this, spin cycle and because they did it themselves, right? I don't know. They thought they were doing the right thing. They thought they were avoiding probate, which they're avoiding probate, but now the consequences are even higher because of the capital gain, because of the property tax. It would have been simpler to allow that piece of property to go through probate. Probate
Yeah.
again is 5%. It can be expensive, but at the end of the day, you got to balance these dollars and cents.
So let's talk a little bit now about tax considerations and trusts. You've mentioned like some of the benefits of placing a property into trust, but could you just really quickly list What are those benefits versus leaving it in your name? And you talked about different scenarios where it probably would have been better to leave it and let it go through
Yeah,
probate.
which is horrible for me to be saying, but
Yeah, just
because of
like
the tax consequences, right?
tick down some of the benefits, and then just briefly explain, like, how does putting a property in a trust actually help avoid probate? Like, what is actually happening there?
Okay, yeah, it's a great question. A lot of moving parts.
Mhm.
So when you set up your revocable trust, and not all trusts are the same, I will say that, okay? A little, you wanna make sure that, you have all the bells and whistles in your trust, right? And so how that happens is, let's say you have your personal residence, and you want it to go to maybe your 2 children. So you would literally transfer husband and wife transfers their personal residence into the revocable trust. And there is no tax consequence on that because it's a revocable trust, and a revocable trust is seen as a pass through, right? So the grantors are alive, they're also the trustees, and they're going to leave it when they pass to their children. So title transfers, there's actually an exemption so that it won't get reassessed, right? And then the next uh, plus, if you will, is that the property will get a step up in basis once mom and dad passes. And actually, the property will also get a step up in basis if it's done correctly and it's going into the revocable trust as community property. Then there will be a double step up at the death of the first spouse to pass. If they purchase the property for $1,000,000 and it's worth 3, they get that double step up, as I like to call it, basis. So now the property's 3,000,000, right? So if a surviving spouse was to sell that property, they will have 2 years to sell it, and then they would have a $500,000 exemption. So that plays into the capital gain, right? There's no capital gain. If they sell it after the 2 years, then they will only get their single exemption, which is 250,000, right? So that all plays into effect, and then your property is being preserved maybe for your 2 children as well. And so if there's changes that need to be made, you make it with your trust because your property is in your revocable trust. And then if you have rental properties, you can transfer those into the revocable trust. It will not get reassessed. Your property tax is not going to go up. If you have LLCs, because you have rental properties, we can assign those LLCs to your revocable trust, and it's the same benefit, right? So that it won't pass until mom and dad have both passed. That's what I always try to tell. When you set up the revocable trust, you are the 100% owner, 100% beneficiary, and really, your kids, your nieces, your nephews, they have no say unless you're incapacitated, right? And even then, they have to follow the terms of the trust. So, a revocable trust, by transferring title into the revocable trust, you avoid probate. And you also avoid, the whole joint tenancy where you're adding a child to the deed because you think you're avoiding probate, but it's actually going to cost the child more, right? You put it in the trust and your children can still inherit it without going through probate.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of transferring property during life versus after death?
And again, I know we've touched upon
Yeah.
this, but just to reiterate, because this is a big deal and I see it all the time. So it goes back to your basis, right? And so if mom or dad bought that property for a $500,000 and they transfer it during lifetime, child is taking that property with that basis of a $500,000, even though the property could be worth 3 or $4 million, right? Or 2 million or whatever. It's worth more than what mom or dad purchased it. So they take that basis, which is not a good thing, right? And so if they go to sell it, that's when the capital gain comes into effect. And there's other ways around it to get creative. If you have, vacation homes, second homes, you can use LLCs to create this special entity, if you will, as a way to transfer vacation homes or second homes or rental properties. So there's a process to reduce your taxes, right? You can do things to reduce it not necessarily avoid, but you can reduce it, right?